Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Charles Bass from the University of San Diego Alumni Association, and it's wonderful to be connected with the USD community virtually. We are happy you could join us for this Alumni Spotlight, whether you are with us live or you're watching on our YouTube channel. Today's program is a partnership between the USD Alumni Association, USD's Canal School of Business, and the Black Alumni Network. Our virtual program coincides with this year's Hire USD campaign, an effort from the Alumni Association and the Career Development Center to build awareness about the importance of toreros hiring toreros. If you or your company has a position open, consider USD first. Learn about Hire USD, related programming, and how to post a job under the Benefits tab at alumni.sandiego.edu. And now we'll get on to our Alumni Spotlight with Ed Simon. Ed has been recognized as one of the top 50 most influential LGBTQ plus leaders in San Diego. He is an experienced executive in the utilities industry, skilled in supplier diversity, operations management, water treatment, strategic planning, and business process development. He is a strong operations professional and has a master's degree in executive leadership from USD. In addition to his work in the utility sector, he is co-founder of the Diversity Advisors consulting firm. And so now, without further ado, I invite Ed to turn on your camera. And Ed, thanks so much for joining us for this Alumni Spotlight. You are looking fantastic in that USD sweatshirt.
That's exactly right. I had to bring on my Toro gear, so great.
All right. Well, welcome. Ed, let's just jump right into this this Alumni Spotlight with the hard-hitting interview questions. So tell me, what brought you to USD?
Wow, I would tell you, I was on a journey really to find a school that could really help me improve my manager and leadership abilities. And I did some research and I stumbled upon the Masters of Executive Leadership program when I learned that the Blanchards were founder and coordinator of that particular program. I was really excited about that. But once I understood the curriculum, the schedule, as everyone knows, everyone's busy trying to pursue a higher education. And I also researched some of the professors and what they bring to the table. I felt it was a shoo-in for me to attend USD. So that's really what brought me to USD, is the curriculum, the flexible hours, the professors, and the rest was history.
All right. Well, we are so glad you chose USD and that you went through the program and you've remained involved, which is really important. We encourage all our Torero alumni to stay involved. We like to say, I just told a group of 100 students on Monday night that you are Toreros for life.
That's
so
right.
We appreciate you.
So
I know we've talked and you've enjoyed the program, but tell me, what's a favorite memory from your time at USD?
Well, I would tell you, that could be an entire hour in itself. So I'll shorten this as much as I can. Actually, I have a few that I wanted to share quickly. The first is the memory and really the bond that cohort 17, and we said cohort 17 was the best cohort of all. I have to say that. But anyway, I met some of my best friends through the course and certainly developed some long-lasting relationships. And we still stay in touch with one another through the WhatsApp apps and the Signal apps. We went through a lot together. So it was really the bond that we formed from, we shared births. There were 5 babies born out of the MCL cohort 17 family, one of which were a set of twins. We also went through a lot of job changes. Unfortunately, with birth comes deaths. And then I would be remiss, and I want to acknowledge, we lost one of our cohorts, Lisa Kilka, last year suddenly, and we certainly miss Lisa. She was certainly a beautiful, nurturing woman and a really, really important mom to a daughter. So we do miss her very well. So I would say the bond would be the biggest memory. Yeah.
I was going to say, not to interrupt, but I interrupted by not interrupting. But I mean, here you've got a bunch of kind of mostly type A personalities, right? These hard charging but very successful business leaders, and then you're put into this room with each other, and the potential for clash could be there, but it sounds like you guys really bonded.
We did. We really had a great time, and you're absolutely right. We had some very strong personalities, but one thing that we quickly realized and learned that we're here to learn from one another, and having those clashes aren't going to be productive in our learning experience. So we quickly agreed to certain rules, and certain things we wouldn't do. And we stuck to those. And it was really, for me, an overall great experience, the bond. The other thing I would tell you quickly, and I tease on this one, because we were very picky people when it came to lunch and breakfast. And so I know the faculty there at USD thought, oh my God, cohort 17 is coming in this weekend. We got to do all of this. But that was another fond memory. It's just remembering we love to eat and all the great foods, and being able to ask for something different when we wanted to. And then the last thing I would point out, Charles, is the trip to Spain our trip abroad was absolutely a beautiful experience, and learning to really team build quickly. I think we had a 30-minute instruction on maneuvering a sailboat, and we were, have at it. We still had some experienced people on there, but it was the team that really guided the sailboat. So that was a very good memory as well.
Nice. How long were you in Spain?
A week.
A week.
Yeah,
great.
It was a week. It could have been more, but I think some of us went before, stayed after. But the class itself was about a week.
Okay, yeah. For folks who aren't familiar, there is a USC Madrid Center in Spain. We also have a very strong travel program called the Traveling Toreros. So I'll interject commercials now and then during these during the virtual spotlight. So
well, all right, I would say, Charles, interjecting a commercial here, and we used to call it MSEL Mondays, because we would attend class once a month, obviously the entire weekend, and we call it MSEL Mondays because we were so excited when we got back to the office on Mondays to really share and apply what we learned. But I say a commercial for you only because I would come home after the weekend and really share a lot with my husband. And so much so, after about 6 months or so, he said, you know what, I think I'm going to join the program as well. And he did. He graduated in 2019. He's going to be part of your speaker series here in a few weeks. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah. That's the 7x7 event that's scheduled for March 30th. So that's fantastic. Well, since you graduated in it was 2017, correct?
Yes.
And so what have you been doing since that point?
Oh, that's certainly a good question. Well, if we do the math, I graduated almost 6 years ago, May. I would tell you, I've just continued to work on becoming a better leader, and really focused on servant leadership, understanding. I should say this: before I attended the program, I thought I was an exceptional leader. You couldn't tell me I wasn't. And it wasn't until the program that says, you need to step back and really reevaluate your assessment of yourself here. And but anyway, I learned quickly that leadership is about being a servant leader, right? It's also understanding, Charles, and I know your viewers probably knows this, that what motivates me is different than what motivates you. And so I used to try to group motivate people, and that doesn't work. And so I just been really working on becoming a better leader and applying a lot of what I learned from MSEL. I've continued to lead a great team at California American Water. I've also picked up serving on a couple of boards in the San Diego area, specifically the San Diego Equality Business Association. I'm a chair of that board. Also the Los Angeles Gay Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. So serving on boards and trying to help organizations become more inclusive of individuals. And then the other thing I'm really proud of is under my leadership, I've led California American Water to almost upwards of 50% of their procurement dollars being with those diverse individuals, women, LGBT, minority individuals, and veterans. And so I'm really proud of that. And the coup de grace has been in 2020, I started my own business with my business partner, Dawn Gilbert, with the Diversity Advisors. In addition, we also have a podcast, the Diversity Intersection. So been pretty busy.
Yeah, sounds like you've got at least 2 full-time jobs, plus maybe a third full-time job as a volunteer. So,
that's right. That's right. Absolutely.
And your volunteer leadership is includes time with USD, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. Absolutely.
So what are some of the things you've done there?
Well, I would tell you, I think it was a couple of years ago, I mentored one USD, I think he was pursuing his master's degree in business administration. And I really, really enjoyed that. I would tell you, I would like to see my participation in alumni activities and in the university, increase. And I'm willing to do whatever I can do to help there. But anyway, it was a great experience mentoring the student. Unfortunately, after about 6 meetings, he had a family emergency that he couldn't continue the relationship, but it was certainly rewarding to mentor and share my experience with him, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. That's a time for another commercial, because in addition to the mentoring programs that some of the graduate programs have, we also have a platform called Team, and it's Torero Employer and Alumni Mentors. And it's you can go to mentoring.sandiego.edu and you can register for opportunities to serve as a mentor, and you kind of set your own time and the amount of time you have available. So that's a nice thing. So continuing, you talked about starting the diversity advisors, and I didn't want to just gloss over that. We'd like to kind of delve right into that and tell us a little bit about the organization and overall your work in the DEI and B space.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking about that, Charles. I would say, just so your listeners and viewers know this, for many years, my business partner and I talked about what we wanted to do after we retire, right, from our day jobs. And it was in 2020 when the whole racial unrest was happening with the George Floyd issue. Unfortunately, that really resulted in Dawn and I reevaluating our business start date, if you will. We felt that we couldn't wait any longer, and that we needed to use our background, knowledge, experience, and skills to help individuals, companies, small businesses be more inclusive of individuals. And so our company is the Diversity Advisors. We are focused on really making a more equitable and inclusive place. Our vision is to utilize our knowledge and expertise to help our clients further advance inclusion, belonging, diversity, and equity in their organization's culture, as well as their supplier diversity, which is really our part of a piece of our background. But we provide diversity, equity, inclusion training, and that's customizable training. We have a very unique e-learning subscription that people can subscribe to monthly. That's packed full of 6,000 topics around diversity, equity, and inclusion. We also have different retainer services. We have Ask the Diversity Advisors, where companies that want to know more what their employees are thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, we have a platform that would allow them to implement what's called Ask the Diversity Advisors, and we would receive those questions and answer those for them, and then provide the leadership with the report on here's what your team members are asking and thinking. And then with the Diversity Advisors, we felt, how can we also share in a platform that allows us to interview individuals around diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging. And so we developed the Diversity Intersection podcast. So
Okay.
that's us in a nutshell. I will tell you one of the things that we quickly learned, or I learned from the MSEL program, and this is all about applying what you learn in these programs, is we quickly discovered and created our why. Why are we doing this? And so that's another topic that we can spend probably an hour discussing. But that's really the diversity advisors in a nutshell, is really helping organizations and companies create a robust, sustainable diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging strategy.
That's great, and certainly needed. And how would you say it's been received in the 2.5 years that it's been formed, since you formed it?
Yeah, I would say it's been received very well. We in the beginning, I would tell you, and this is in 2020, we did receive through our info at the Diversity Advisors email where folks can contact us. We did get a couple of nasty grams on, why do you need to do this? But it was only a couple, and those were the only 2 that we received early on. But it's been received very well. And it really, Charles, and you probably know this in your role there at USD, being inclusive is a choice that people make. And so when we approach companies, it's all about meeting them where they are today. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, that's the diversity advisors and what we do. But it's been received very, very well. We've helped with quite a few companies develop strategies and maintain their strategies and provide surveys and things like that, for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about those companies. What types of companies are you seeing that approach you as potential clients?
Sure. And I would tell you all types of companies, from for-profit companies in the different industries to nonprofits have approached us, government agencies, as well as school districts have approached us. And specifically, we've worked with a couple of construction companies, a nonprofit organization based out of the San Francisco area focused on identifying homeownership. We also have worked with a couple of regulated utilities, and from one in particular from New York. And then we also work with, which is one of our larger customers, a school district out of New Jersey, and help them with their diversity, equity. So it's all over. Many companies, many different types of companies look to engage us in their diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging efforts.
That's sounds like your hands are full, but you've got quite a footprint from California to New Jersey. And
I will tell you, Charles, we would love more companies. We're doing our best. We have developed a robust strategy for our 2023 through 2025 strategic plan, one of which includes a business development type of strategy. But we can always use more business, right? Being a small business, we can always use more business, for sure.
Yeah, and how is that informed? How is your work, maybe through MSEL, but also through the diversity advisors? How has that informed your other role with California American Water?
I'm glad you asked that question, Charles, because it's very important to me. When we decided to officially launch our company, both Dawn Gilbert, who's the other founder, and I both went to our current employers and said, here's what we're thinking and wanting to do. We wanted to make sure that it wouldn't be an issue or concern. And we were very clear on making sure that our interactions would not appear as a conflict of interest. And so we're very transparent in our discussions with our current employers. The good news is that they both have been very supportive, right? And obviously they want to make sure that we have our day jobs and have that where it needs to be. And we've both been successful at consistently improving our our results for those companies. But they've been very supportive and receptive of our wanting to start our own business. And they really like the fact that it is around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, because both companies are really focused on that as an organization. And part of my role actually with California American Water, I don't think I mentioned this, is I am part of the California American Water Board as the Inclusion and Diversity Officer. So I also help with that. So they have been very supportive and embrace what we're doing. So it's good.
That's great. One thing I wanted to ask about the diversity advisors and the companies you're seeking, and that is just, what are some of the challenges that you're presented when they do take the step to reach out to you?
Right.
And you talk about such a diversity of organizations and types of organizations. So sure, it's all over the place. But
right. I would say the biggest challenge that we find, Charles, is companies struggle with the approach. And when they want to introduce or increase their efforts, everyone knows that they need to be inclusive and to create such a strategy, but most companies don't know where to start. One, and then the other part of that is they want to start, but they're very hesitant about starting because they're concerned about how that makes others feel. And so we work with them, number one, to find out where they're at in that journey. What have they done? What have they not done? And that whole bit. But for the most part, it's been they're being hesitant to want to start because they're very concerned about what others feel. And so our response to that is, what do you think the folks that would like for you to start it, how they feel if you don't, right? And when I say that, a good example is, most companies, if they don't have a diversity, equity, inclusion strategy, then they're missing out on allowing, some people in different LGBT, people with disability, they feel that they can't bring their authentic selves to work. And so it's very important that we work with these organizations to help them create strategies that is inclusive of everyone. And we've always said, we do not want to exclude anyone in our work with companies. Even, we're not just focused on minorities, marginalized communities, but we also want the white individuals to get involved, and we want to hear what they have to say and how this makes them feel, and how can we work together to help everyone, not just the minority or marginalized community, but everyone feel that they're being inclusive and being included in the discussions.
Yeah, that sense of belonging just applies across the board. Before we go on, I do want to mention that you're welcome to enter in the chat with any Q&A. There is a Q&A button, but do use the chat for if you'd like to ask a specific question. I was struck by you saying that you thought you were a pretty good leader when you started the program, and then you learned that you can always improve on yourself. I would imagine that you get some, there are companies out there that think they're doing a great job in terms of making everybody feel, they've never heard any complaints, so they must be doing a great job with the whole idea of everybody feeling a sense of belonging. Do you shock some people or surprise people when you sort of do an audit to their programming, and what's the reaction?
Sure. I would tell you absolutely. The one thing that we like to do when we start a partnership with a client is we always like to assess where they are today, because that's so very important. Because how can you improve upon something if you don't know where you're at today? So we highly encourage our clients to allow us to survey, and we start with leadership, because that's very important that the leadership, we understand where are they at first in this journey. So we survey the leadership. We ask certain questions around their personal experience with diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. How do they feel the company is doing? And it's anonymous. We make it very clear. And in our survey processes, It is truly anonymous. There's no way that we would share with leadership who said what about them, because we want to make sure everyone feels welcome. I will tell you, there are a lot of surprises when those survey results are shared, because they are thinking, "Oh my God, I didn't think we felt that way," and people do. So there are some surprises when we complete the survey and their reactions, and sometimes they're not surprised, and it depends on really the makeup of that leadership team initially, right? I mean, and this is no offense to anyone, but if there's all white individuals on that leadership team, then you're going to get all white type of responses. But if you had a mixture and your leadership team was diverse, then you would get that mixture there. But everybody's at different levels when it comes to being inclusive. And like I mentioned before, inclusivity is being a choice that people individually have to make. But to answer your question, there are oftentimes surprises in the survey results. What's not surprising, however, is everyone wants people to feel a sense of belonging. But it's how and where we challenge companies is, well, how are you doing that? What methods are you using to cultivate that sense of belonging?
Yeah, and this is a good time for another commercial. And I do want to talk about kind of that sense of belonging, particularly as it applies to USD, something that we constantly are working on. And you talk about it coming from the leaders, and our leader, in particular, our president, Jim Harris, is very much committed to this sense, to the idea that everybody should feel like they are welcome, should be welcome, not feel like they should be welcomed here. And so one of the things that under his leadership is implemented is this 5-year plan called the Horizon Project. And so it's one thing to talk the talk, but it's the other thing, so many places do that, but there is the walking the walk. And so our board of trustees, led by our chair, Don Knaus, has helped fund the Horizon Project. That's another big issue, that let's do all this stuff, but we don't have any money for it. And they have put money where into the program over a 5-year period. Just yesterday we had an awards program, this Diversity Impact Awards, but there are these actual tangible things that are happening, from the admissions program all the way to the Alumni Association and the work that we're doing through our task force on diversity, equity, inclusion. But I encourage people to go to the Horizon Project. I think it's sandiego.edu/Horizon Project. It's an interesting. It's good to see what we're doing, and then of course there's always more work. I think even we have a DEI series coming up that our task force on diversity, equity, and inclusion through the Alumni Board is putting together, and I think one of the guests on that series will be our associate provost, Regina Dixon Reeves. So now,
I remember, and I forget the gentleman's name that USD hired for their to work on and I know, believe it or not, Dawn and I met with him. I think it was a couple of years ago, and I'm drawing a blank of his name, and I should have done my research. But he joined the team there to kind of help with the structure of that task force, and I forget his name.
Oh, Richard Miller, I believe. Dr. Miller. Yeah, he's been. So he was a consultant we hired for a 1-year period. He didn't want to take the job as of this leadership role for. It's actually vice provost for diversity, equity, inclusion, but it was great because he could say whatever he wanted, in a professional way. But he could call us out when it was needed, and there was no, it wasn't going to hurt him in any way. Because so it was great. He spoke to the Alumni Association board. He spoke to groups across campus and held dozens and dozens of meetings. And so that's Dr. Miller, and so Regina was is the first person to hold that role. We've had a faculty member who had been in a DEI role, but it was a part-time effort and not fully backed by, or it didn't have the full it had the support, but not the funding to follow it.
Sure.
So
Right.
Regina's in a better stead in that sense. So that was great that you were able to meet with.
We were
him.
very, yeah, I would tell you, I was very impressed with him. And he did say just that he was in a consulting role and helping to create that. But ultimately, long term, as you mentioned, he did say he wasn't, because I think he was retired from somewhere. I forget where he,
Yeah,
Carolina?
he came from Tennessee, one of a school. You know, we're from California. All that stuff is the same. Anywhere past the Midwest.
Right.
That's on the, yeah. So he was at Middle Tennessee State for a long time,
Yes.
I think, and then had been into school in Carolina and North Carolina, I believe. So
right.
yeah.
And I would tell you though, I mean, I was very appreciative in my journey with USD. I mean, as a minority student, I felt welcome and I felt listened to, and that was back in 2017. So to hear and having a conversation with Mr. Miller and hearing what USD, your efforts there, that's pretty impressive. And you're absolutely right. It does take funding to really look at and try to develop these strategies and task force and making sure that you're casting the net wide enough to be inclusive of people of color in your hiring practices and your students and things like that. So I was very impressed even back then with USD's efforts. And so to hear you're continuing that is a great journey.
Yeah. So back, one thought from a colleague is, so how do you, so diversity work can be, it's critically important, but it can also be taxing. It can really, especially at an institution, not necessarily, at an institution where there's not a diverse population, then the work falls on a few individuals and can be really detrimental to them. So on your, in your sense, what do you do to manage your own well-being?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, a couple of things. I read a lot. I like reading different books, and I also make sure that I have time to really think about especially working with the different companies, our approach with them and how we're going to make this a successful partnership. So I read a lot. We do a lot of research with Harvard Business Review and other organizations to make sure that we stay relevant in this space. Dawn and I do a lot of that. We just started actually a nonprofit called Building a Better Tomorrow Today. And that nonprofit's really going to be focused on bringing the various community-based organizations together to talk about what challenges each of the communities are facing and how can we work collectively together to solve those issues. What we see is that each of these community organizations are just focused on their community, but who's bringing them all together to say, let's unite and address issues that are similar, and then also talk about differences. So I stay busy with, just trying to keep up with reading. Also, my husband keeps me on my toes. He lets me know when, you could tell you're taking on too much. Slow it down a bit, pump the brakes. And so he says, it's time for a vacation. He's a vacation kind of guy. So it's time to take a break. And so I do take time for Edward to really decompress at times. Yeah.
That's great. We just have a few more minutes. So if you do have any questions, please put those either in the chat or the Q&A. A question from Megan. Do you have any advice for graduating students who are looking to land their first job post-grad, I guess as it pertains to, in the DEI space?
Yeah, I would say just make sure that you are entering to the space because you're passionate about it, and not just because it has been, and I'm being very transparent here and honest, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging has been really a hot topic, since about 2020. When the whole George Floyd issue. And so you do have companies and people that create, companies and want to go into this space because it's the hottest thing today. And don't go into it for that reason. Go into the area, because you really, really want to make a difference, and that you really are passionate about making this world a better, more inclusive place. I will tell you, to start, I would start with maybe moving into maybe the HR space, if you can start there, because that's where all of the the people are, right? That's
Yeah,
where people are, the the human capital. The most valuable part of a company is its people, and so that's really where you can also start there. But do it because you're passionate about it, is what I would say, and not just because you think it's the latest, greatest type of area of focus. Yeah.
sure. Well, this is all about USD. So what? And I know we have a couple of students tuned in. Would you have any suggestions or recommendations for how students can apply the kind of the principles of DEI and B in their day-to-day lives, and bring that to organizations within the campus?
Right. Well, I would tell you, and especially with the graduating students, and I can say this because I'm a little older. I'm especially with
We do not use that term in alumni relations.
oh,
OLD does not
you're more
exist.
seasoned, or you're more,
Yes,
yeah,
mature,
exactly.
mature.
You're more mature, absolutely. I call it, yeah, but you're right, absolutely, Charles, the older part. But I'm a little seasoned in my journey in life. But I would say to them, just be conscious of how you're being inclusive of others' thoughts, ideas, and that you get to know people on an individual level, and not judge people for where they're at in life, right? That is so very important, that people allow people to be people, be respect. I always say to even my team and others, just be respectful. If you think about conversations that you have with people, most people are okay with you really talking to them about how you truly feel, if you do it in a respectful and compassionate manner, right? So I would just say to the students, just approach life with, treat people how you would want to be treated, and show people that you're okay with whoever they want to marry, or whatever disability, be it small or large, they have. It's okay to be inclusive of them in your discussions, and make sure that everybody's included. So when you're in meetings and you see someone not speaking up, say, "Hey, Ed, we haven't heard from you," or "Charles, we haven't heard from you." Just be an advocate for inclusion, is what I would say.
That's wonderful advice. Be an advocate for inclusion. You don't know where somebody's coming from, what their experience might be,
Absolutely.
and those assumptions that we all make about folks can get us into trouble. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, we're just about wrapping up with our time here. I wonder if you might have any kind of last bits of advice, words of wisdom, books that you might recommend.
I would say, I'm glad you asked, Charles, because I do have a couple of things. First of all, I apologize. I wanted to certainly acknowledge Black History Month is
Oh
February.
yes,
And
we have time, please.
exactly. And so
Keep
I want
going.
to make sure that you really think about the many contributions that African Americans and Black individuals have made to the country and the world. And I pulled this down because I wanted to make sure I shared this with you, and I'm trying to find where it is in my little notes here, because it was very important that your listeners and your folks think about this, the contributions. Did you know, and this is a did you know question for everyone, did you know that folding chairs, the gas mask, traffic signal, the automated elevator doors, potato chips, and even the Super Soaker children's water gun toy was all invented by Black innovators? Did you know that a lot of the contributions of African Americans in U.S. history, among them is Madam C.J. Walker, who was the first U.S. woman to become a self-made millionaire? Most of you know George Washington Carver, who derived over 300 products from peanuts, right? So I just say, let's pause for the month of February to acknowledge the many contributions that African Americans make. And I will tell you, I was featured in the spotlight and with a company with Black History Month, and I said to them, it's great that we're being recognized once a month, but it's really all cultures and it should be celebrating their heritage and their culture every day. So it shouldn't be 1 month out of the year. And then I'm gonna say this to you. One of my favorite influential figures in Black history is Dr. Martin Luther King, which I'm sure your audience knows very well. And there's a quote that that's one of my favorites, and I'm going to share that with you. And I quote, "People fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other." So really think about that in your day-to-day. It's true, right? We fail to communicate because we don't know each other. The more we get to know each other, you would be surprised at how similar we all are.
Yes.
So that would be, I just want to make sure I acknowledge it. Now, lastly, you asked for words of wisdom and comments. I'm going to leave you with a quote, and this is from the late actor Chadwick Boseman. And I think most all of you know them from Wakanda Forever. But the quote he said was, and I quote, "Fearless means taking the first step, even if you don't know where it will take you. It means being driven by a higher purpose rather than applause. And finally, it means knowing that you reveal your character when you stand apart more than you stand in a crowd." So that's where I'm going to leave you today.
All right. Well, that's great advice and some good points to think about. So, well, with that, I will officially say thank you, Ed, for sharing your insights.
Yes.
We wish you well as you continue your work in both or all of your full-time jobs, particularly as you work to open up opportunities for all and help create a sense of belonging for all. And that's really important. Thanks again to my colleagues, Kara Marsh-Prophet, Bridget Breitenberg, and Gretel Sosa for their support of this program. You can see more of our alumni spotlights by checking out the USD Alumni Association's YouTube channel. This will be up on there soon, so we invite you to share it with your friends. As always, we invite you to join us for more Alumni Association programs. You can see here on the screen some of our upcoming events, including we have our Black Alumni Network has an appreciation dinner coming up on March 3rd, I believe. I have it right here. Yes, on I'm sorry, Wednesday, March 8th. So that's something. We mentioned the 7x7 program, and that is coming up on March 30th. And 7x7 is available both virtual and in person. It's a USD program similar to TED Talks, where alumni share their inspirational stories, highlighting leadership, creativity, and innovation. And again, we invite you to visit alumni.sandiego.edu. You can see more information about 7x7 and all our upcoming events. Also, to connect with Ed, edward.simon@amwater.com. And Ed, how can we find the Diversity Advisors podcast?
Sure. The podcast, anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, it's the THE Diversity Intersection. And then you can also link with me through our website, thediversityadvisors.com. Real easy. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Ed. We really appreciate your time. And thanks to everybody who could participate. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks. And take good care, stay safe, and go Toreros.
Go Toreros. Thank you.